My wife got a new knitting machine, a Passap E6000. I knitted already a few test pieces, but now it's time to put it to work. I measured and reverse engineered a sweater I liked. So in this video I will go through the key steps and what it took to make it. For this project I'm using 2 cones of very thin 2-ply merino wool. I combine the 2 strains into a single feed on the knitting machine. I could use the machine just like a manual machine like my Singer, but why would I? If I have powerful electronics, I want to use it. On the other hand, I'm not experienced enough to do a standard form program like a Raglan sweater, so for now I will only do some basic stuff. I will try to mask all the wrongdoings I did with the program, so you only see what's really needed. Okay, once program appears, we click on enter, erase to erase anything that we had before, yes, cast on. Now we need to type in the cast on program. We want to do cast on program number 2, enter. It now asks, is that all you want to do? And I should have pressed no and type in additional programs, but I pressed yes. I will do that correctly when I show the back piece. Then it asks whether I want to do a program for shaping for the form. I don't want to do that, so I click no. Now I need to do the left needle counter. I need a total of 42 needles. The left side needs to be 21 minus. On the right side is 21 plus. So now it says start cast on. Yes, I want to do start cast on. It now wants me to put the carriage to the start position. So I need to move the carriage so that little thing here points to the first needle. Enter. Cast on. Yes, I want to cast on. It now wants me to set the front lock to SX. So while the left lever sits on N, I can change the dial to S and then move the lever to X. Once I have done that, I confirm it. Now it wants me to do the back lock on GX. Just put it to N, change the back lock to G, and then put it to X. I confirm. Knit an empty row. It now wants me to set the front bed offset lever to point straight down. I confirm with enter. Now it wants me to set the front needles. The front needles, I'm not just activating the needle, I need to activate the pushers. So I activated 42 needles, 21 left to 0 and 21 right to 0. After that, I confirm with enter. It says knit row empty, which means I need to move my carriage to the left. Now it wants me to set the back needles. ND means I only need to activate the needles, not the pushers. If there would be push, I also need to activate the pushers. But for now, needles are enough. So now I have 42 needles activated. On the front bed, they also have the pushers activated. I confirm with enter. It says now to load color 1. Here's my color changer. That thing says to use color 1. And if I now push my carriage far right. Now it flips it up and the carriage takes over the color. Cool. I confirm that I loaded the color. Now it's time to set the stitch size. For the caster I'm using stitch size 4 on front and back. Yep. Stripper O means I should install the orange strippers. I have black strippers and orange strippers. The strippers go in like that, into that slot, snap, and the other side goes into that slot. Yep. Orange strippers are when you work with double bed machines. The black strippers are when you just work with the front bed. I confirm. Now I need to move the front bed because the dashes are at the bottom to LX. So change to L, back to X. Confirm. Back bed change to N. On the back bed we do N, which basically means the computer does nothing, it's just knitting the needles that are active. I confirm. Set the row counter to 0. Row counter to 0. Oh, yeah, and now row counter 0 and I should start knitting. So, first move. You might have the same issue, but my left 2 stitches have too much tension. So I need to loosen that up manually. Also note, normally the pushers are good enough, you can knit without weight. But since my yarn is so thin, I figured out it's better to add a weight. The biggest drawback on the Passap is that there's not much room between the front and the back bed, so it's a little bit tricky to get something in between. But that part is not so bad. Okay. For now I'm just adding a small weight. The computer meanwhile asks me to adjust the stitch size. The next thing will be round knitting. For round knitting I use stitch size 6 on both sides. I confirm the input. It now wants me, the dashes are on the top, so on the back bed it wants me to change to CX. So here I go to C and X. Confirm. Row counter 1 means I need to push to the right now. Row counter says 2, so I need to push to the left. It's now asking again to adjust the stitch size, which is back to 4, on front and back. Confirm. Push the back bed to N. Confirm. Row counter 3, so go another round. And cast on. Since I want to do a full rip, I don't need to really program 102 for the knit program. I can just keep going. And because I'm a bit lazy, I try to connect the motor now. The back, you see this pusher that can connect here into the motor slot. So I need to align it and push it down, and now it's connected to the motor. The motor, I don't know all the ins and outs, but you can say right and left hand boundaries and switch directions and things like that. You could manually, you could push it on one and it keeps running until a certain event is triggered. Or I have a pedal down there where I can push it to automatically move the carriage. But before I do that, I need to follow my instructions and reduce the stitch size now to 3 on both beds. This is awesome, isn't it? After 23 rows, I changed to program 104 Fisherman rib. So this way I easily reached row counter 325, and it's time for the last increase. Also note, I used these stoppers or whatever they are meanwhile, because I perceive it to be better in knitting off the last needle. I always need to check it did it right, and it did it. Now I need to increase the other side. Move this thing away. Activate one more needle. And as you can see here, maybe it's not visible, but the last needle didn't knit right. So I need to get this corrected. I need to put the stitch behind the ledge and pull it through. Now it's good. I can also now place these things here. Meanwhile, on row counter 349, and it's time to start the full fashion decreases. I need to decrease every 5th row, 5th row, 4th row, 5th row, 5th row, 4th row, and so on until row counter 507. For the full fashion decrease, same story than with any other knitting machine. And same on the other side. I not only push the needle out of commission, but also the pusher down there. And I place this back on top. I also reduce the back, and the same for the right side. Then we go 5 rows. And reduce again. I finally reached row counter 512. I have 6 needles left over, which I'm adding some waste yarn to be done with the arm. Next, I'm starting to do the program for the back of the sweater. After firing up the machine, I can enter for the memo and select the language. I confirm with enter that I want to program something, not to enter. I want to erase, and I want to do cast on number 2. Confirm, is that all? No. For stitch pattern A, I want to do 102, which is a full rib. Enter. Do I want to test it? No. Is that all? No. Because I want to do a Fisherman rib, which is 104. Enter. Is that all? Yes. Do I want to do a form? No. I need to set the left needle, which is 55 minus. 55 minus. Enter. And the right needle is 55 plus. So a total of 110 needles. Start cast on. Yep. And now I have to rattle through the same procedure. Go to start position, SX, GX, do an empty row, check the front thing. Then it wants me to set the front needles. So I need to activate 110 needles, actually pushers, 55 to the left and 55 to the right of 0. The saga then continues with empty row and so on until I can finally start knitting. So let's move on row. Not sure why this happens, but the last 3 needles, they are too tight, so I need to manually correct that on front and back bed. I inserted the comb and I'm now adding 2 of the small weights. Next is round knitting, so I need to go through the various settings. Beep. I need to adjust the stitch size again, and for the full rib I need stitch size 3. After changing the backlog back to N, I can start and do my next rows. And now I'm getting the message end cast on. After confirming the end cast on with enter, I can change to my next program, stitch pattern A, which was program 102. After every program or pattern change, you basically have to go through the enchilada of empty row, SX, GX and that stuff. This row empty is needed for the program to adjust the needles, and since I changed to SX and GX, I can basically do an empty row without getting rid of the yarn. It's basically slipping. Eventually I reached the point where I chose row counter 4, which means I can start knitting. I connect the motor and verify my tension is right. Because of the empty row, all my yarn is too loose. Nearly forgot to change the row counter to 0. Change to 0. And now I need to knit 23 rows. Oops. My motor was not set wide enough. I need to set that wider. Stupid me. And because of that problem, I moved the carriage, it ran into an error, which I confirmed, and then it wants me to start at the beginning again with start position. Followed by an empty row, and I do all of that stuff offline. By the way, with the orange pushers, you normally don't need weights, but since I have a very thin yarn and it's a Fisherman rib, weight is better. I'm also setting those babies onto the last needle. I think it's supposed to make a nicer edge. I do the same on the other side. After getting all of this done, it's now time to start the Fisherman rib. The front for the Fisherman rib is KX and the back for the Fisherman rib is EX. Once everything runs smooth, you don't need to push the pedal anymore for the motor. You can also activate it here. So at row counter 241, I'm starting to do a full fashion decrease. Every 7th row, I'm gonna decrease by 1 on both sides, back and front. And the important thing is to not only push the needle down, but also push the pusher down here at the bottom. Otherwise it will reactivate the needle. And I do that front, back, left, right. Once done, I set these thingies back on top of the needle and I run 7 rows. At row counter 416 I did the last decrease and I have 60 needles left over. Before doing the cast off I will do 1 row of a full rib, so I have nothing tucked anymore. To do that I change the front and the back to N, which means knit all needles. Next I'm doing the front. To a large degree it's the same than the back, the differences are here. At row counter 360 it's time to start my U-shaped neck cutout. I have 76 needles active. To do a neck cutout on the Singer I would just put all the needles on the one side of the neck to pause. And on the Passap I could do that on the front bed by deactivating the pushers. But on the back bed for Fisherman rib that's not possible. What the forum suggests is to cast off the middle, put the remaining half on some decker comb, then knit the other half. Once you are done with your other half, put the first half back on the needles and do that side. What the forum suggests is to do a cut and sew. I'm not really familiar doing cut and sews. Plus I'm a bit afraid the sewing machine would carve up with that soft yarn. So I'm gonna do the cast off and putting stuff on a decker comb. C'est la vie. On the other hand, I'm wondering what the machine would do if I would program to say only work from needle here to here. Theoretically it should leave the other needles alone. But that's only true on the front bed. The back bed is basically knitting every needle that's active and you can't put the needle on pause, so scratch that. So I'm taking this piece of yarn. I'm not sure if that's really helpful or anything. Make a little knot. And then I need to start casting off that first needle. Move the stitch to its neighboring needle. Take the yarn and pull it through. And then on the back, move the stitch to its neighboring needle, zip, pull the yarn around and pull it through. And so on. So front and back in the center are cast off. Now it's time to put the one half onto decker combs. Wish me luck. I managed to get the front needles onto the decker combs, which was already pretty bad, but the back needles were a nightmare. I do that offline because that would be a very lengthy video. I made it, but whoa, it's high risk and a pain in the neck to do it, in my opinion. After raising the front bed Back up, I need to deactivate all the not needed needles and pushers in the front and in the back, and then I can keep going. Okay, so I can go on. Since I only have a few stitches left, I'm doing that manually, not with the motor. Plus I now need to reduce one stitch every second row over here for the neck cutout, and one stitch every seventh row on here. And no need to put in the machine, I do that manually. Row counter is 360. For the neck cutout, I'm just doing a single stitch transfer, not with a triple decker. So transfer that over. And the same for the back bed. Initially I didn't change the program, which means it was still programmed to go to needle 55, which means I need to push the carriage all the way around. I forgot to do that a few times and ran into an error. Then it wants me to start from scratch again, start position, empty row, yada yada yada, a nightmare. So next time change the program and reduce the needles. To put the first half back on the needles from the decker comps was very difficult and risky. It was a major nightmare. So let me fast forward. At the end, I made it. I verify all the stitches on the needles, including the tucks on the back bed. I activated the pushers and lined them up. Needles front and back are activated. All these pushers and needles are in non-working position. I now need to change my row counter back to 360, and then I can keep going. After everything is done, I hit the assembly phase. I started to stitch the front, the back, the arms together. I left it open because I still need to measure the cutout for the neck. But so far it fits everything. To measure the neck cutout, I need to start measuring from here. Then I go into the front piece up to here. On the front piece I need to take that distance twice, because the neck is going to be overlapping like a shawl. I'm not super experienced with neckbands and shawls, so it's not a perfect thing, but let me show you what I wanted to do. It was meant to overlap in the front center. Then, as a 1-1 rib, gradually increase into the full length of about 13 cm. The back section is an industrial rib. While it's not perfect, I'm pretty happy with the overall result. It's very comfortable, warm, and my first Passap experience was positive.